In the heart of Eastern Europe, a storm is brewing, one that could change the course of Belarusian history forever. President Alexander Lukashenko, once known as Europe's last dictator, now finds himself surrounded not by loyal generals, but by betrayal, whispers of mutiny, and the crumbling walls of his own regime. For nearly 3 decades, Lukashenko ruled Belarus with an iron fist, suppressing dissent, silencing opposition, and keeping the military and security forces under his absolute control. But power, as history teaches us, is a fragile thing. The same generals who once saluted him, who once declared their undying loyalty, are now turning their backs, and the world is watching. The signs began subtly. Military movements that didn't align with official orders, senior officers disappearing from public view, encrypted communications intercepted by Western intelligence agencies hinting at a correction, a chilling word often used in political coups. At first, the government denied everything, but within weeks, something broke. A convoy of armored vehicles was seen moving toward Minsk, not as part of a military parade, but as part of something darker. Eyewitnesses reported seeing troops blocking main roads, communication lines cut, and electricity flickering across government districts. Panic began to spread in the capital. Lukashenko, furious and confused, appeared on national television, his face red with anger, calling the rumors of betrayal foreign lies and NATO propaganda. But the look in his eyes told another story: fear. Inside the presidential palace, the once unshakable leader now faced the unimaginable, his own inner circle plotting against him. Intelligence reports suggested that several senior generals, those responsible for internal security, logistics, and strategic command, had formed a secret pact. Their motive? To end the corruption, restore stability, and, as they claimed, save Belarus from destruction. But others believe it was nothing more than a struggle for power, a fight among wolves for the throne. The betrayal didn't come overnight. It was years in the making. Since 2020, after massive protests erupted across Belarus following the disputed presidential election, Lukashenko's grip on power began to weaken. Thousands were arrested, journalists were beaten, and opposition leaders fled abroad. The army was used not to protect the nation, but to silence it. That decision, many say, was the turning point. The loyalty of the generals began to fracture. Among them was General Sergei Valikov, a respected military strategist once known for his loyalty to the state. But after seeing the blood of innocent protesters on the streets of Minsk, something inside him changed. Reports suggest he began secretly coordinating with other officers, those tired of Lukashenko's brutality and the country's growing isolation from the world. By 2024, the cracks had become chasms. Belarus's economy was collapsing under sanctions. The country's dependence on Russia had deepened to the point of suffocation. Many in the military feared Belarus was becoming a puppet, not of its people, but of the Kremlin. When Lukashenko publicly supported Russia's invasion of Ukraine and allowed Russian troops to launch attacks from Belarusian soil, the resentment within the ranks reached a boiling point. And then came the betrayal. In early October 2025, intelligence sources reported that several Belarusian army divisions had gone silent. No contact, no movement reports, no confirmation of orders. Within hours, gunfire was heard outside a military base near Grodno. Local civilians reported seeing helicopters hovering low and columns of tanks moving toward the capital. Something was happening, something massive. Lukashenko immediately convened his emergency council, demanding explanations, but as he spoke, one of his top aides received a coded message: "The generals have declared the operation." Those words sent a chill through the room. The coup had begun. Television broadcasts were suddenly interrupted. Internet access across Belarus became unstable. Videos began leaking on Telegram, soldiers occupying government buildings, military units switching allegiances, and crowds gathering in confusion. Some chanted freedom for Belarus, while others feared a civil war was beginning. In a desperate move, Lukashenko called Moscow. According to sources, he begged for Putin's help, saying, "They are coming for me." But this time the Kremlin was silent. Russia, now embroiled in its own military struggles in Ukraine and facing domestic unrest, couldn't afford to intervene openly. Lukashenko was on his own. Inside the palace, loyal guards surrounded the president as the sound of explosions echoed in the distance. Gunfire grew louder. The once powerful leader who boasted of absolute control now stood surrounded by fear and paranoia. The betrayal had cut deep, not from outside enemies, but from the heart of his own army. As chaos engulfed Minsk, rumors spread that General Valikov had taken control of the main army base and declared himself the head of a transitional military council. He promised to hold free elections, to restore democracy, and to end Belarus's subservience to Moscow. For some, he became a symbol of hope. For others, just another dictator in the making. International reactions came swiftly. The European Union called for restraint and condemned violence on both sides. The United States expressed deep concern, while NATO increased surveillance flights over the region. Russia, meanwhile, called it an internal Belarusian matter, a statement many analysts interpreted as a sign that Putin had washed his hands of Lukashenko. As night fell, Minsk burned. Columns of smoke rose over the capital as explosions shook government buildings. Civilians fled, seeking safety in basements and metro stations. The streets that once echoed with the chants of protesters now roared with gunfire. In a haunting scene captured on live stream before the internet went dark, Lukashenko's motorcade was seen speeding toward an airbase. Moments later, conflicting reports emerged, some claiming he fled to Russia, others saying he was captured by his own guards. The next morning, Belarus woke up to a new reality. State TV stations played martial music, and a statement appeared: "The armed forces of Belarus have assumed temporary control to ensure order and stability." The image of General Valikov appeared on screen, flanked by other officers. He declared the formation of the Belarusian National Restoration Council, vowing to end the dictatorship and rebuild the nation. But was it truly freedom, or just another chapter of military rule? Across Europe, analysts debated the implications. A coup in Belarus meant instability on NATO's eastern border. It meant uncertainty for Ukraine, already struggling in its war with Russia. And it meant that Putin's last reliable ally in the region might be gone. Without Lukashenko, Russia's strategic access to Western Europe through Belarus could collapse, shifting the balance of power in Eastern Europe entirely. In the streets of Minsk, some citizens celebrated, others mourned. Families torn apart by years of repression hoped for change, but feared what might come next. Could this military uprising lead to democracy, or would it plunge Belarus into a dark new era of violence? As the days passed, the situation remained fluid. Reports emerged of clashes between loyalist units and rebel forces. Entire cities declared neutrality, while others fell under rebel control. The country was splitting, apart. Its people caught in the middle of a power struggle they never asked for. Lukashenko's fate remained uncertain. Some sources claimed he was hiding in a secret bunker near the Russian border. Others whispered that he had been flown out by Russian operatives in the dead of night. A few even suggested he was still in Minsk, refusing to surrender. But no one truly knew. What was certain, however, was that his era, the era of absolute power, fear, and control, was over. For years, Belarus had been a forgotten country in Europe's shadow, neither east nor west, trapped between Moscow's influence and its people's desire for freedom. But now, as its generals rise and the regime collapses, Belarus stands at a crossroads. The choices made in the coming days will decide not just the future of its people, but the stability of the entire region. The betrayal of Lukashenko is more than just a political event. It's the story of power, how it corrupts, isolates, and ultimately destroys those who cling to it for too long. It's the story of a nation breaking its chains, even if through fire and chaos. As dawn breaks over the smoking skyline of Minsk, one question remains unanswered. Will Belarus finally find freedom, or fall deeper into darkness? The night of the coup left Belarus unrecognizable. Smoke still hung over Minsk like a dark memory, and silence filled the spaces where once the sound of power echoed. The streets were scarred by fire, tanks stood abandoned, and soldiers, once loyal to Lukashenko, now walked in confusion, unsure whom they served. The world had witnessed the impossible. Lukashenko, the man who ruled for nearly 30 years, who called himself the father of the nation, was gone. But gone where? No one truly knew. Officially, the new Belarusian National Restoration Council, led by General Sergei Valikov, claimed Lukashenko had fled the capital. Unofficially, rumors whispered that he was either captured or hiding inside an underground command bunker near the Russian border. Some even said he was injured while trying to escape, but one thing was certain: his reign was over. Inside the crumbling walls of the presidential palace, documents burned, secret files disappeared, and old allies scrambled to protect themselves. Ministers switched sides overnight, declaring loyalty to the new transitional government. The speed of their betrayal shocked even the generals who led the coup. Power was shifting faster than anyone could control. Across the country, chaos spread like wildfire. In the city of Gomel, protesters stormed a police headquarters, tearing down portraits of Lukashenko and replacing them with the white-red-white flag of the old Belarusian Republic. In Brest, pro-Russian militias clashed with nationalist forces demanding independence from Moscow. The country was splitting apart, not just politically but ideologically. For years, Belarus had been trapped between East and West, between Moscow's influence and Europe's promise. Now that Lukashenko was gone, the question of which side are we on became a fight that could tear the nation in half. Meanwhile, General Valikov appeared on national television again, surrounded by uniformed officers. His speech was calm, but his eyes betrayed exhaustion. "We have removed a dictator. We have restored honor to our army. But our work has just begun. Belarus must be free. From fear, from corruption, and from foreign control." His words echoed across the airwaves. Crowds cheered in some cities, while others watched in silence. Could this man truly bring freedom? Or was this just another soldier grabbing the crown for himself? Behind the scenes, Valikov faced enormous pressure. Russia was furious. The Kremlin immediately condemned the coup as an illegal military action supported by Western intelligence. Russian state media accused the generals of being traitors serving NATO interests, but privately Moscow was in shock. Belarus had been Russia's closest ally, a gateway for its forces, a shield against the West. Now that shield was cracking. Within days, Russian troops began massing along the Belarusian border. Satellite images showed armored divisions preparing for exercises, but Western analysts feared something much worse: an intervention. At the same time, the European Union convened an emergency meeting. Some leaders saw opportunity, a chance to finally pull Belarus away from Moscow's orbit. Others feared escalation, warning that supporting the coup could spark another regional war. Inside Belarus, the power vacuum deepened. Lukashenko loyalists still controlled parts of the KG, the State Security Service. Small units refused to surrender, retreating into fortified bases. Sporadic gunfire echoed across several cities as clashes erupted between loyalist and rebel troops. Civilians hid in their homes, watching from windows as soldiers patrolled the streets, their allegiances unclear. Then a shocking broadcast shook the nation. A grainy video appeared online, showing a man with a bruised face wearing a torn military jacket. It was Lukashenko, sitting behind a table, surrounded by masked soldiers. He spoke slowly. "I was betrayed, not by the people, but by those I trusted most. They sold Belarus to foreign hands. But I am not finished." The video went viral. Within hours, thousands of his supporters, mainly older citizens and loyalist militias, began gathering in the southern regions, demanding his return. Some believe the video was fake, others saw it as proof he was alive. Either way, it reignited a dangerous fire. General Volikov's counsel responded immediately, calling the video a Russian fabrication. But the damage was done. The myth of Lukashenko's survival was spreading, and myths are more powerful than facts in times of chaos. Meanwhile, inside Moscow, Putin faced a painful decision: intervene and risk another war, or let Belarus burn and lose a strategic ally forever. According to leaked intelligence, high-level discussions within the Kremlin revealed deep divisions. Some generals wanted to send peacekeeping forces to restore order. Others warned that such a move could trigger NATO involvement. The United States, meanwhile, deployed additional surveillance drones over the region and placed troops in Poland and Lithuania on high alert. Belarus, once a silent corner of Europe, had become the center of global tension. Days turned into weeks. The situation deteriorated. The economy collapsed. Fuel shortages led to long lines at gas stations. Banks froze accounts. Supermarkets ran out of food. The new government struggled to maintain control as armed groups began forming local militias. Some declared loyalty to Volikov, others to Lukashenko, and a few to no one at all. Minsk became a divided city, half controlled by the military council, half by resistance groups claiming to fight for true democracy. Buildings were burned, government offices raided. The once orderly capital turned into a battlefield of ideals. In the midst of this chaos, whispers spread of a secret deal being negotiated between General Volikov and Western diplomats. According to reports, Volikov offered to hold internationally supervised elections in exchange for economic aid and recognition. But there was a condition: Russia had to stay out. When news of this leaked, Moscow's patience snapped. Russian media declared the Belarusian generals enemies of the Slavic Brotherhood. Propaganda channels called Volikov a Western puppet. Troop movements intensified along the border. For the first time, both NATO and Russian forces faced each other just kilometers apart, tense, ready, waiting. Inside Belarus, the atmosphere turned suffocating. Curfews were imposed, protests banned, and arrests became daily routine. The dream of freedom that had inspired the coup was now fading under the weight of fear and control. People began to ask, was this revolution worth it? Then something unexpected happened. In mid-November 2025, reports emerged that Lukashenko's son, Viktor, once considered his political heir, had crossed into Belarus secretly from Russia. Accompanied by armed men, he declared himself the legitimate leader and vowed to avenge his father. It was a chilling reminder that the Lukashenko dynasty might not be over. Skirmishes broke out between Viktor's forces and Volikov's troops near the eastern border. Videos circulated online of captured soldiers, burning vehicles, and devastated towns. Belarus was sliding toward full-scale civil war. Internationally, voices grew louder calling for peace talks. The United Nations proposed sending a mediation team, but neither side trusted the other. The people, trapped between two armies and two ideologies, began to flee. Refugee columns stretched toward Poland and Lithuania. Men, women, and children carrying what little they had left. The once quiet borders of Belarus were now lines of desperation and fear. And yet, in the middle of all this destruction, a new force began to rise, civilians organizing on their own. Local leaders, teachers, doctors, and students began forming councils in towns abandoned by both armies. They called themselves the People's Committees of Belarus. Their message was simple: no more dictators, no more generals. We will rebuild ourselves. These committees started providing food, medicine, and basic order. They used social media to coordinate aid and share news. Slowly, hope began to flicker again, not through soldiers or politicians, but through ordinary citizens, refusing to surrender their future. General Volikov, realizing the people were losing faith in the military, made a desperate decision. He announced that new elections would be held in 6 months, supervised by the United Nations and the European Union. But whether such elections could ever happen in a shattered, war-torn country remained uncertain. As December approached, snow began to fall over the ruins of Minsk. The city, scarred by months of conflict, looked hauntingly quiet. in one of his final broadcasts of the year. Valikov appeared again on screen, his uniform worn and his face aged beyond recognition. "We have paid a terrible price for our freedom," he said softly. "But freedom has never been cheap. Belarus will rise again, if we do. Not let hatred consume us." The camera cut away, leaving the image of a flag. Not Lukashenko's red and green, but the old white-red-white symbol of resistance, fluttering over a burning skyline. Outside, the people watched in silence. For the first time in decades, there was no one absolute ruler, no iron voice commanding obedience, only uncertainty and a fragile, flickering hope. But far to the east, beyond the frozen forests, another convoy of Russian tanks began to move. Their destination was unknown. And so the story of Belarus was not ending. It was only entering its darkest and most decisive chapter. The betrayal had started the fire. Now the flames of revolution threatened to consume everything. As the world watches, one truth remains. In Belarus, power no longer belongs to a man. It belongs to chaos. And from that chaos, something new may yet be born.